Welcome to the Maryland Caucus. I'm Dave Whelan, the executive editor of the Spy newspapers, and this is a Spy podcast where veteran Maryland political analysts Len Foxwell and Clayton Mitchell break down the politics, policies, and personalities shaping our state each week. And a warm welcome to you both. Len, I want to start with you this week because this is an extraordinary story that you are personally involved with to a certain degree. Tell me what you know.
So, Daniel Fuentes Espinal is a 24-year resident of the United States. He's been a pillar of the Easton community. He's the pastor of a beloved and highly successful church here in Easton, and he supplements his income by having a successful home construction and home improvement business. And so on the morning of Monday, the 21st of July, he was stopped and arrested and detained by ICE agents, literally as he was going to a job site out in the field. He had been to Lowe's that morning, had picked up some building supplies. He was on his way to work, and he got pulled over right on the Easton bypass. He was transferred to a holding center in Salisbury and then quickly transferred to an ICE detention center in Baltimore. And if the standard protocol for these guys holds in this case, absent some high-level intervention, he's going to be transferred out of state somewhere like Louisiana, Arkansas, or Texas in the next couple of days. Dave, this is a guy who is a model citizen. I know the Trump administration likes to, cite Abrego Garcia and some of the less than perfect elements of his personal background, not to excuse any of it, but not to excuse their behavior. But in this case of Pastor Espinal, he's a model citizen. He has three beautiful children. He is a pillar of our community. Anytime someone needs shelter, he opens up his home. Anytime people in need are in need of food and clothing, he's there. No questions asked, with no expectation of getting anything in return. Like I said in my letter to ICE that I wrote on Monday, I can't think of any human being that I know who better exemplifies the teachings of Christ than Pastor Espinal. And they are just turning this into a sport hunting mission, and it has tragic human consequences. A family is without their father and grandfather, who also happens to be the primary breadwinner. A church is without its leader, and a community is without one of its most dependable citizens. And it's a human travesty. And the community is outraged, as they should be. And members of Congress have really decided to step up and get involved and see what we can do to expedite his safe and timely return home to Easton to be with his family.
Len, this is actually happening in a number of communities, and this is starting to have political impact, don't you think? It's something to think about. A topic like immigration in a high concept way. It's something quite different when it's local and people know each other, and the consequences of this policy is being seen firsthand.
I completely agree with you, Dave. First of all, it really, people's perspective on this policy debate tends to change markedly when it hits home and on such a personal level. I just want to say on that note that Pastor Espinal, he spoke at my son's funeral. I mean, I think many of your listeners know what happened to my son on June 18. We're still dealing with the aftermath of that. But Pastor Espinal spoke at my son's funeral, and his son Daniel was actually Darren's best friend. graduated with him just less than 2 months ago from Easton High School. And Daniel was literally at Darren's deathbed on the day he died. The other thing I'll say is that going from the personal back to the policy, I don't think this is what the majority of the American people signed up for. Donald Trump ran on a policy of securing the southern border, right? Stemming the flow of new immigrants, across the border. And this is not that. This has nothing to do with securing the border. This has nothing to do with with public safety and uh, public security. This has everything to do with, let's just call it. I mean, it's cleansing, and uh, this is something entirely different from what we've seen any other time in American history, and it's having devastating real world consequences for families and small communities and large communities across the country. And now it's hit home here on the Eastern Shore in a very devastating way.
Do you feel like this is the kind of thing that could change the political landscape in a very conservative part of the country, like the first district?
It's hard for me to think of this now from the perspective of a political analyst, because I'm kind of inside the looking glass, looking out. But I think this is the type of case that flies in the face of the stereotype when we talk in broad terms about immigration reform and border security and crime control and prevention. None of those principles and none of that rhetoric applies in this case. Like I said, this is a beloved local minister, a philanthropist, a humanitarian, a family man with no criminal record, who's been here for over 2 decades. And we live in a faith-based rural community. And like I said, this is a man who exemplifies the teachings and the principles of his faith each and every day of his life. And so I do think that there are going to be people who look at this situation and the way he's being treated, and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. This has nothing to do with good public policy. This is evil.
Clayton, let me get your opinion.
I got to tell you, Dave, I take a slightly different approach to this than Len does. And I say that by saying up front, I support President Trump. I have to qualify that by saying I support President Trump 80% of the time. Now, here's where I 100% agree with him. I think the border needs to be closed. It needs to only be open to those that are vetted and come in the legal way. I think and I know I agree with him 100% of the time that all the felons and violent criminals and terrorists that are here illegally need to go. That being said, what do we do with the remainder of all of these immigrants that are here not legally? There's those in my party that says, to hell with them all. We need to put them on planes and just send them out of here. Well, that's a view, but that's an expensive view. And I think that that's a view where we are being beguiled by dogma. We're not looking at this in a rational way, with a hard analysis and a thinking way. The examples of those who are left are like Pastor Espinal. I have a friend that was in the tech industry. He's in the United States for over 30 years. He's got a brilliant mind. He has a family, and he's been here for decades. He just had his visa revoked. I don't know the reason for that, but I do know that he has a Muslim-sounding name. I don't want to cast aspersions on why his visa was revoked, but there's that issue. I also heard the story of a guy in Caroline County who's been around for 30 plus years, has a family, pays taxes, otherwise a good guy. ICE approached him at one of the gas stations there. They got him, and he's in Texas now. No other evidence of any of these people with any felonies, any violent behavior in society They were otherwise good-hearted, productive people in society. They have roots here. They pay taxes here. They're otherwise good citizens. Now, if I want to talk to my Republican friends here for a second, we have an opportunity here to do something to solve another problem. President Trump said, in an actuarial basis, our population growth isn't there to support social programs like Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and other things. We don't have enough people to fill jobs that are out there. I think we have an opportunity here to say, those of you that have been here for decades, now you're not going to get a path to citizenship. You're going to have to be punished in some way. Maybe you pay a tax, maybe you pay a fine, maybe it's a fee that you pay over time. There has to be some kind of quote unquote punishment for that. But to tell those people after decades here who have otherwise been productive that they have to go now, I think is wrong. There is a principle in equity called latches. Latches is if you sit on your rights for too long, you're not able to exercise them. That doesn't really apply to the government, but by analogy, I think it should. If the government and society and my Republican Party, if we've allowed these people to stay here for decades without doing anything about it, eventually it becomes wrong for us to say, Pop, you're out of here. You haven't done anything other than cross the border illegally. You've been productive, but we're going to get you out of here. I think for no other reason, we should have them remain here, pay a fine, pay a penalty, but allowed to participate. Where the bright line is with how long they should be here, I don't know the answer to that. But I do know that we're not going to be able to deport 12 to 15 million people in this country.
You know, the follow-up for me with Clay is, you know, when you have several of these things happening in just one community, and then you look at the Maryland state as a whole, I can't believe that this won't diminish whatever exists, especially in the first district of Trump's support for his immigration policies. I mean, when you think locally, it's a totally different thing than in the abstract.
I agree with you. In the abstract, things appear black and white. In reality, and when you dig down into personal stories and how it affects people, that's quite another. I got to tell you, Dave, I think there are hardliners that believe you're here illegally, you have a seat on the plane, you're out of here. I see it as a way, and philosophically, I agree. You shouldn't be here illegally. However, we've allowed this to happen under the Biden administration. Infamously, everybody knows 10 million or more came in, and over time, there's millions more that have been allowed to be here. How do we solve that problem to our advantage? And I don't think it's just to wholesale say everybody go. We have problems we need to solve. One of them is we need workers. The other one is we need taxpayers. And if there's a way to do that, I'm for that. I'm in that group of people, not the other.
Okay, well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.